if you think you don't want to start a company or you don't want to go write a book, or it might just be because you haven't put yourself in a spot where you've actually gotten uncomfortable and asked yourself, what do I want to do? So every tiny step matters. Talking as a fractional chief officer, the one thing that was consistent, I went back and looked at my career, I always wanted a product that was consumer facing. Try to put yourself in the consumer's shoes. Don't be yourself, be that consumer. So you need to understand, again, like that persona or who you're trying to be. Maybe go live a day in their life. Go to the store, look in the aisle, listen to people as they're looking in the aisle around you. You get a lot of insight around that.
Welcome to the Sock Door Podcast, where life is messy, but we always find meaning in it. Every week, we pull out the stories, the lessons, and the hidden gems. And then we ask the big question, keep it or kick it? If you're ready for real talk, brave steps forward. I'm your host, Lisa Begley, and you're listening to the Sock Door Podcast. Let's jump right in. Hello, Sock Door family. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to Sabeen Abbas. She is a powerhouse when it comes to bringing big ideas to life. Sabeen has led innovation, product initiatives for some of the world's most recognizable brands. Stay with me, you're going to know these. Coca-Cola, Honda, and yes, Baby Einstein. And now she helps companies grow and stay inspired as the Fractional Chief Product and Commercial Officer at Hatchline Consulting. And you know what I love most about her story is how she blends purpose with performance. She reminds us that innovation, it isn't just about what's new, it's about what's next. Sabeen, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Sock Door Podcast. I'm happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I was seeing your podcast pop up in my feed online, and I was super excited when you said, would you like to be a guest? So that's really amazing.
Yes, and thank you for saying yes and being here with us. I appreciate you so much. Now, listen, we just talked about this offline a little bit, so I want to, for our listeners' sake, because I didn't know in the initial, I want to, just say that out loud. I didn't know it either. So I learned it. And you said you posted it on LinkedIn, and I love that. But before we dive in, for our listeners, could you explain or give us a brief overview of the difference between a fractional chief product commercial officer? What does that mean as opposed to like a normal C-suite? How is that different?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And probably a lot of people are starting to see that space evolve. Mm-hmm. I think, I don't know all the history of it, but I will say like what it means very simply is part-time. And it could be something where it's part-time, like so many days per week, mm-hmm. or it could be something where maybe it's even an interim opportunity. Also, it could be just something where you're coming in for a specific project purpose, maybe. So I'd say maybe it's kind of like a evolution of a contract consultant or just a consultant in a newer space. And one reason, and we can get into this later, that I was super interested in that space versus a traditional C-suite is I really, in my career, have loved internal consulting. And I feel like fractional could be that space that just kind of gets it right. Where not only do you help companies get through some strategy and solve some big problem, but maybe you get to the beginning or even into the guts of actually getting it executed.
Okay, I love that. And so it's almost like you kind of give them a jump start and then you're able to like watch them evolve and flourish.
Yeah, you can be there right alongside them. Versus like sometimes contracts, you usually just have to get a roadmap or here's this one thing to solve and then I'm going to give it to my executive team, or there's another consulting team that might do change management that might come in. And I mean, there's different reasons that that evolution is happening now.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a great opportunity to do at least what I like to do, which is get in, kind of understand what makes the company tick, and like help them out.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because I wanted to have a good foundation before we jump in. And one of the things that in fact, let's just start there, because I would love to know kind of how this all evolved for you, and getting into Hatchline Consulting. I'm sure there's a backstory there. What first drew you into the world of innovation and product development?
Yeah, so to answer that, I may need to go back and just kind of give you a quick career synopsis.
Yeah, please
and
do.
thank you so much for the intro. Actually, when I started earlier and I was at Honda, and even before that, I did a co-op at General Electric. I was actually an engineer at that point. So I graduated as an engineer, and I was a mechanical engineer, and that's like a very detailed problem solver. And then there's also business engineers, like industrial engineers.
Okay.
Luckily, my career allowed me to kind of pivot between both early on.
Yeah.
When I got into that space, though, is also like product development, innovation. That's been from day one throughout my whole career. Maybe like for the first year at Honda, I was just dealing with what I would say are suppliers.
Okay.
And getting their parts like a certain quality level to get on the car. I had a very critical part, which was a fuel tank. And it was really strange because I told my dad I did not want to be a doctor because I didn't want the responsibility of someone's life on me. Now I had fuel tanks, right?
Ironically, you ended up there anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So somehow I got in that space, so that could have added to that discomfort initially. I like being responsible, but I learned to adapt and like own it, if that makes sense, in some very critical industries. In my time there, I got to launch a really great product, 2009 Honda Pilot, in that supplier quality space. And I got to run a team of 20 amazing engineers and project managers, and some were in the US, some were in Canada, some were in Japan, to really like drive to where we needed to go. And that detail orientedness plus that macro inspire change that matter helped me to kind of balance how to lead a team like that and a supply base.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So, okay, so that's Honda, right? And that was kind of where you started. And then take me through Coca-Cola or were those before? Like, give me a timeline a little bit.
Yeah, so I started at Honda. I was still an engineer at that point. Really loved, I got that opportunity very early to be the supplier quality project lead on the 2009 Pilot. I did another stint at another Honda plant, on their transmission plant in Georgia, for another 3 years. I'd had a kid in between, so I was driving 90 miles actually to go to the Honda in Alabama, so it was quite far.
Oh my gosh.
I needed to be closer. It was very great, like all the stuff that kind of just happened.
Yeah.
And that happens on career journeys. Sometimes if you just ask or take a step, it works out.
Yeah.
So after that, I decided again to make a move for my kid and family. And we wanted to be in a different area, like certain schools I was interested in, and we looked in that space, and there was a baby toy company. I had applied maybe a couple of years before to the baby toy company. It didn't work out at that time, from my side, but I got asked again, like, would you like to come work in this group? And it was, the first group was like a different department, and then this was a different team that was actually baby toys. So they have like lots of gear, baby gear. They have a lot of different departments.
Yeah.
So I got to actually work on baby toys. So every engineer's dream is to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so it was really great because I got to take a lot of projects from development. And this time it's not working just with suppliers, but actually coming up with the mechanism and really getting back to my roots of engineering.
Sure.
But in that one company, I was able to traverse a lot. It's a family-owned company, and there's a lot of trust that they put in their employees. So it was a great opportunity to try different hats. And you also, as the engineer, weren't just a project manager. You were playing a bit with the business analytics and stuff like that, and the P&L to support the product manager.
Yeah.
So you started to get more exposed to business because it was a smaller company. And I got to work on IT systems. I got to go all of it for product development. I got to go work with, different organization structures because I had some vision of what it would look like. So they thought, why not try to do it? My biggest takeaway was making a phase gate process. So a product development process that they could use against all 9 categories. And it took you from an idea to execution to like how it needs to keep growing in the marketplace. So that was very unique. And stage gates exist and phase gates exist out there in industry, but I tailored it specifically to the baby toy company. So I got to move from very specific toys into getting to play with bigger systems at the company. Amazing. And it was a great experience. And at the same time I was doing my MBA, and that's how I eventually go over to Coke.
Okay, so all of those things, big, you've worked at some of the biggest, right, global brands out there. What did those experiences teach you about leadership and creativity?
Some of my most favorite experiences were while I was doing my MBA, I just happened to be sitting in between a bunch of designers. So I got a lot. It was like some of the best intellectual conversations you've ever had.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah.
So already creativity, it's fun being an engineer and then stepping into this space because when you make a phase gate process, you have to think of every cross-functional function. So I have to get into the designer's head, the product manager's head, the manufacturer's head, all along the path so it can get to that consumer. Yeah, I'm driven by, I want this product for this consumer. Yeah. But every step along the way, each person has a piece of that story. So with designers and creativity, there is a way to do that. And it's not as straightforward as engineers where they're looking just for a root cause or root opportunity. It's similar, but a little bit different. So I got to learn about design think. And maybe where an engineer might ask why 10 times to get to like the nutty center of a problem. Yeah. A designer thinks about the context of the why. So they're really thinking about like what's going on around. And so what happens is in a product development process, you really need to open up the conversation early on possibility. And they call that blue sky thinking. Right? Okay. So we want to make sure that we're making an environment maybe where the engineer, if they're like a feasibility engineer, doesn't start saying, no, it can't be done. But we still need the engineer, just not maybe at that first stage, because you really need to have something you're inspired off of and then keep driving into like further conversation. And that's really at the heart of creativity. I was very blessed to have been part of that type of an experience. And learning about design think after coming from engineering, but it is another system process, and I'll say this probably multiple times throughout this conversation, a balance of art and science. Yeah. And it seems, it kind of gives depth and layers to what you're doing. How do you I'm just curious, maybe as an example, what was one challenge that you had to bring these things together, that you had to take the engineer piece of it, you brought them in later maybe, and then the design piece of it, like was there a specific product or I want to say toy, but a specific product in that scenario where it was like you had to bring those two together? Yeah, so a lot of times we think of communication. So when you say that, this was one that comes to mind. And it's part of the reason I decided to push the phase gate process at the toy company. So many smart people, if you put them in the position of when they're going to make the biggest impact, you really are harnessing your team. And again, that's what I like to do, inspire change that matters. So a problem I came up to one time is sometimes when we would send, and this has happened at a couple of places, but sometimes when you send things to a company that's outside your company and you're asking them to do a design iteration for you, you're still iterating inside, even though you're expecting a prototype to come back to you. Okay? So a lot of times, if you are not disciplined and like stopping that flow, because you're going to get out of sync with your other party, you could potentially go into 20 different revisions versus maybe the 3 that you're budgeted to do.
I see. Yeah.
So iterations are great, but you want to have a beginning and an end point so that you can kind of learn and not miss something that you learned from a prior iteration. So, there's some structure to the madness.
Yeah.
And that allows you to harness that creativity, harness those ideas in a way that it's not shutting off the creativity and thought. It's just shutting off the changes until you've received what you've asked for.
Okay.
And I don't know if that made sense.
It totally makes sense. Yeah, I was just curious. So moving forward a little bit now, at what point did you come to the idea, or what sparked the idea to step away from, and maybe it's not stepping away from corporate life, I'll let you explain, but stepping away from corporate life and starting Hatchline Consulting?
Yeah, so I have now been in corporate and CPG for corporate or CPG for about 24 years at this point. So I've gotten some great experiences, even at the plant level. So not just head office, but also at the plant level.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of great experience. But I think one thing, because it's been kind of all over the place, at Coca-Cola, quickly cover that before I answer your question. Okay. I got to bring in an innovation tool that helped a lot of different departments collaborate on new drinks that were coming out, so that they could forecast correctly. So it was really fun and a great mechanism to kind of get that ball rolling. I also did the club channel strategy, which is 3 years, like right at the heart of the pandemic. And that's like the best channel to have been in the middle of that, especially if you like to people watch. And then the other thing was execution with the oldest bottler in the Southeast region. So I got to do that as my last stint. And I did that for about 18 months. So at the end of this journey, I was doing execution, and I was really, I loved all the stuff I wanted to figure out just about this really amazing system of Coca-Cola. And I really was craving now to take that knowledge back and think more end to end. Just in general, like how can I take strategy to execution more efficiently? Is there another system I'm interested in? Something that is really important to me, and it's a bit complex, but I'll quickly walk through it.
Sure, please.
Over my time, I'm a big connector. That's probably my superpower. And I like to connect people, data, processes, and systems. And what I noticed is, for me, I think what drives me or makes me curious is business anthropology. And I got this idea in talking to an actual anthropology student, and she was telling me that some of the methods that they use in her studies actually were developed in businesses, because you are moving so fast in maybe consumer goods or some of these very specific places where the consumer or service, you really need to make sure that you're delivering on that cultural moment or whatever it is, right? Yeah. So I started to think about it and was like, oh, I love anthropology. And I do think that is what really matters to me. So there's 3 parts to what I call business anthropology. Part 1 is how a business interacts with their service or product with their consumer. That really gets me every time.
Yeah.
The second part is how businesses interact with each other. That is really fascinating to me. And then the third part is how an organization is designed to maybe make the outside and inside a little bit more seamless. So it's just as fun to deliver a promise at work in these little steps like brainstorming or making sure that the manufacturing line is ready to go. So you've always got that end point in mind.
Okay.
If I can ever have a role that gets close on all 3, that's always golden for me.
Yeah.
And where I think that matters for me is I was looking for, again, going back to that end to end after my 24 years in corporate and having kind of picked at every little thing I had questioned and just gotten curious and delivered maybe something different or unique in the space. But how can I bring that value to a new system? And I I wanted to learn more about the startup community. I wasn't sure where I would fit in that space, but it just seemed super interesting to me. And I was curious again, and I'm thinking, oh, I really want to go try to do my own thing. And I really actually meant it this time. I'd had thoughts earlier at the baby toy company about startups in general and curiosity, but it hadn't hit me again. So just kind of life moments happen. Yeah. And then also I'd just been in the execution space and I was craving that strategy again. Yeah. And so I wanted something that was a bit, again, end to end, and that's strategy to execution. So that's kind of how I decided that I was going to step in this space, and it has not disappointed.
Let me ask you this. So now, and I love that you've made that leap, and now, how did you develop Hatchline Consulting? Like, how does a fractional leader give you a, kind of a unique advantage in helping companies innovate and grow?
Yeah, so for me, when I first stepped out, I knew I was wanting to do Hatchline Consulting because I knew my magic sweet spot is when a company's growing. Again, because I like to connect all those things. I think I unpacked that business anthropology to where I understood myself. Yeah. So I like to be where I've got a lot of impact in those realms all at the same time. So I knew that Hatchline was the name of the company because it's something where you're hatching out of one stage into another. Yeah. And that can be in corporate America. That can be a late stage startup. I'm kind of new in the early stage startup, but it's fun to watch. But I do really love learning what value can I bring here? What is consistent from a pattern standpoint that makes sense to bring here, right? Yeah. And I would say when I'm talking as a fractional chief officer, the one thing that was consistent, I went back and looked at my career, I always wanted a product that was consumer facing. Okay, so the cars, we all buy cars, we all buy toys, we all buy beverages. So it kind of follows the family journey, right? So that's kind of replicated my life. I have conversations with people around me that I'm filling their need, giving me ideas of like what I could do at work or systems to like make that better. I love being in those shoes. So I knew that was something that was important. I also knew there were things in corporate America that maybe I would have liked to keep, where I loved when I was involved with the leadership team to drive impact and change. So I do think a lot of times whenever you're engaging, you need to make sure you're at the right level and understand the dynamics on the ground to sometimes make change happen, right? Yeah. So where do I deserve to win with the company I'm with? Like where can I actually add value or help them win? Yeah. Is product, because I have done that from day one in multiple different industries. What else can I kind of bring to the table? It's that commercial side. Commercial meaning, how do you get ready to sell to that final consumer or that shopper? So I know that point, that magic point, I call it, between the shelf and the product on shelf, and when the person knows that that's what they needed and it's all right there and they've got that product and that's like a go-to product, that's magic to me. Oh. So I know that really trying to figure that out is really key. So that, along with where is the biggest decisions need to be made, is probably how I got there. I don't know if that answered the question.
That totally does. And in fact, this drives my next question is, I'm curious, so what does, I guess, coming in as Hatchline Consulting, what kind of companies do you desire to work with, or are best for Hatchline Consulting, or what companies that you typically work with?
Yeah, so when I first started, like I said, I knew Hatchline Consulting. I wasn't sure the specifics. So as I started to work through, I've had a lot of different experience, but great advice from so many startup communities. You need to get very specific. Yeah. And again, that's where I kind of refined myself, like where do I have a right to help someone at a leadership level? Where do I have that experience? And what do they actually need? And as I start to go through, I played around with talking to some tech people. When I started to talk to people that were in consumer packaged goods or even appliances, that's when it started to feel a little bit more right.
Okay.
And I would say probably, again, there is that innate desire in me to inspire change that matters. So even if I'm advising, it allows me to connect something that they can take, a small step they can take tomorrow to actually make change happen, or even in a couple of weeks. So I loved that space, like late stage startup to corporations going through some sort of transformation. And that's where I was seeing most of that was in CPG and food and beverage.
Okay.
And so that's where, as I was talking through communities, okay, this is probably where most recently I've been in this space, because even baby toy is CPG. So this is probably where I need to stick. And then once I move into that space, now what is here in Atlanta? Okay, do I need to, when I go visit my brother in California, or if I go over, to someplace else, do I need to check out those different ecosystems like Austin, Texas? And I do. And I do, because we have a lot of great stuff here, but there's different pockets that are known to actually have a lot of CPG buzz going on. And so getting familiar with those regions is actually really cool.
That is very cool. And I mean, it's unlimited, it seems to me, right? You've talked about human-centered innovation, right? And what does that, imagining you're with, you working with a company now, what does that really look like inside a company? And how do you bring that to the table, kind of being newer, coming into a team and having to integrate yourself and be able to, lead and guide?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing you've got to start from the beginning is really understand who are your stakeholders in whatever product or service you're bringing to the table. And for me, being a fractional chief product commercial officer meant I was focused on the consumer, but more so even the shopper. So when somebody is shopping, that's where I want to get that surprise and delight moment, or whatever it is, delivering on a need. So carrying that, we all are shoppers, we're all consumers all the time. And founders are the closest to this, so they actually can sometimes have an advantage there. But if you can convey how you are outside of work or how you are shopping, and you may not be the exact demographic, but at least so people can kind of get their head around that person, and maybe you might need to make a persona, that really starts to bring that human-centered innovation and design to light. And sometimes you do start like blue sky and you do yes and, but you do sometimes need to check people too, because sometimes I had designers that didn't have babies and they're making teethers, and yes, this is cute.
Yes. But
like they need to get this way back there to like solve that problem. So like sometimes, you want to make sure that they're also really getting familiar with that problem, which they're looking for anyway. So they'll eat up any input you're giving them.
Yeah. Well, and which is great. And assuming if they're bringing you in, it's because they know they have a need, right? So I think that, it sounds like, it can be a big umbrella or a big picture, or it can really, like you just explained, get into the nitty gritty. Like innovation can feel, well, I'm sure you know this, intimidating, right? For small or even mid-sized teams. And what does that look like? I would be curious, what's one small step that they could take, or you would offer to a team, small or large, to start thinking more innovatively? Like say, I assume, and if I have this, go ahead and correct me, you come in and the first week you're in there, it's like, okay, we need to start thinking more innovatively. What does that look like, and how do you encourage that?
Yeah, so I think this is where going back to why is really, really key. So I think I learned a great process when I was at Honda. It's a Japanese process where you ask why 5 times to kind of get again to that nutty center. it's
like the
part,
2-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's part of design thinking too. So really what you've got to do is try to put yourself in the consumer's shoes. Don't be yourself, be that consumer. So you need to understand, again, like that persona or who you're trying to be. Maybe go live a day in their life. Go to the store, look in the aisle, listen to people as they're looking in the aisle around you.
Yeah.
You get a lot of insight around that. And you need to unpack micro moments, right? So you do need to be a bit immersive. And even me, when I go and consult with someone, I'm not going to jump straight into the role typically. I'm going to ask to do a discovery session.
Yeah.
I need to also understand what makes you tick. Why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
And that takes unpacking. So I'd say really to get the innovation juices flowing, you need inspiration, and the inspiration needs to come from that consumer.
Yeah. I love that. And you touched on something right there that I wanted to ask you about too. And it was like, what's your process? Is there like an application process that you have them come through? Is there what are the deciding factors for you to say, this is a company I know I can help?
Yeah. So right now I do try to help in some way, form or fashion, everyone, if they're getting kind of close. So through the best way that I've thought to do that, and that's what I've got out there right now, is a 30-minute complimentary session. So basically where we can do a very high level unpack of what they want to do or what they're doing right now and where they'd like to go. From there, then I can kind of gauge, okay, do they need more advisory? Do they need just a discovery? Or do they need me to come up with a fractional role that could be a project role, or I'm actually on their leadership team, or it's an interim role because they have someone that they've had to go on maternity leave or something like that, right?
Sure.
So that's kind of how I help funnel through different things that come up during the conversation. But I also know, like if I'm way too early stage, I'll let the person know that too. Like I'm not as familiar with this, but maybe I have someone in my network, or exactly, because sometimes I'll have people coming and asking me for branding. For me, I typically like to work with companies that have, like for the longer roles, that have a commercial a chief marketing officer or a chief financial officer already in place. Yeah. And they can be fractional or full-time, but it just shows me like where the company is at, and then some information about their business as well, just to see how they're kind of running it. And from there, I can kind of make a decision, is this something where I would recommend an advisory packet because that ad hoc setup is better for you? Or is this something where you are truly in my sweet spot and you're scaling something and I really can add some value here for you?
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you said that. So for anybody listeners who, may be connected to a company that is looking to bring someone in, you have a 30-minute, make sure I have this right, a 30-minute complimentary session to just kind of sift through and see what it is you need and if this would be a good fit for the both of you.
Yes.
Is that a fair way to put it? Okay.
Yeah, and you'll get a lot of value in those 30 minutes. So
love that. So and I'll make sure that goes on our site as well. Entrepreneurship. Wow. I mean, it's a big jump, right? And it can be exciting, but I'm sure you also could agree that it can be super exhausting at the same time. So how do you personally stay grounded and inspired through all of it at this point? Like, where are you at on that?
Yeah. So I think what's been great for me, after stepping into this space, I do think I've connected more to myself as a human being, which is very important in leadership roles. Yeah. And the one thing I notice is if I just stay in my home office all week, maybe just got a coffee or something like that. Yeah. That's maybe the only interaction I've had with people. I don't do well. And I can actually get overwhelmed because it is a lot that you're kind of building. I have to mix that in for me with networking. When I do that, I find that's what gives me energy because there are so many people that give you a different angle to think about or that are there to help. That you just have to find different communities to kind of get that feel for and regularly show up, not just to, take, but also to give. And that's what's really great about communities in general is it is a give and take. And I think it's a fantastic space to do mentoring, to volunteer, because even if you haven't had their exact situation, you might be the one person that unlocks something that they needed.
Yeah. Giving back is I've learned as well. It's such a giving back first is how I should say that, is such the best way. And unless you've done it, and I'll be honest, like I wasn't that person for the longest time. I was like, I need to learn more. How can I do more? And what I learned, I watched the change happen as I started to give back first and offer things first. And then it evolved. And it was amazing to me to kind of sit back and watch all that transformation happen, But I'm curious. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, it is a little bit of a tangent, but it's reminding me. Yeah. It's reminding me what I find fascinating about this journey is from the networking. Sometimes all the pebbles you lay down, you don't realize when it's like becoming a mountain that's about to like put you on that tipping point. Yeah. And that's the fascinating part of the journey that I love is, and I loved working in Coca-Cola and doing my MBA because the way they train you and you don't even realize it to network, there are some really authentic pieces that we just have. It is part of relationship building that goes back to rituals as old as time, right?
Yeah.
And those human connections, now carrying them outside of a corporate space, you start to really appreciate how much everybody kind of gave you along the way.
Yeah. And you recognize that. And it's like looking back at, I always say this because COVID changed us so much and it took us away from that human connection piece, and and I feel like, and I don't know about you, Sabeen, but I feel like as I go through my day-to-day, I'm starting to see that become far more important again, where I felt like we had lost it for so many years. And I do see where people are starting to look to connection, look to even myself. Like I got so buried in just being on my own and not even, I had to make myself get out of the house, And so I've really evolved over the last year just doing that too. So I get that. And connection, we're hardwired for human connection. Like you just have to have it. I'm curious to know, what is day to day like? Okay, so when you are at home and you are working on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, what does that look like for you? Because we talked about that board behind you. I was like, whoo, I know what you're talking about. Like I have a board similar, not quite as big, but what does the day to day planning and preparing for all this look like?
Yeah, so I typically try to have set times in my calendar for different things. Okay. Right now I'm doing some mentoring. So there's like three different sessions I try to do per week where I've blocked time for that alongside any advisory or fractional work. So I really try to block and tackle my calendar and again, treat the mentoring just as special and protected. And I think that's like the start. So that's like the nice basis. So, and everybody, they either have a Calendly or some sort of calendar tool. That's like usually step one, because you need to make sure that you maintain a rhythm when you're not in like the structure of a corporate setup. Right. Yeah. And for me, I noticed Mondays, I like to try to keep a little bit open, especially the morning, but I might do a coffee with somebody like that. And that's fine because I've got like a little bit of space at that time, but it helps me to kind of approach the week more thoughtfully. Yeah. But I do have to do exactly what you're saying. If I find myself just getting things done and cranking things out, I have now unpacked that's not me at my best. My best is actually getting ideas off of other people, talking, and then coming back in and solving a problem. Because your mind needs to be in the right spot. And it is some stuff we've gotten used to from COVID that we just need to unwind, and we need the connection to do that. But then sometimes if it's too many people, and I'm an extreme extrovert, but if it's too many people, we need to recover a bit more too. So I do need to be very purposeful with my calendar. That's probably the best way to say it. But I tend to try to work around, again, whether it's somebody I'm mentoring or the fractional time that I've kind of set aside around what that customer needs. Because I know those times are very specific. So I try to like make sure that I'm hitting that stuff, but then also maintaining the networking.
Yes. I think so many people listening are going to relate to that mix, of things that you're doing. Any entrepreneur will experience that. And even people who aren't entrepreneurs, just being able to schedule their time and make sure everything stays, you kind of have a strategic purpose day to day. And, before I have a question for you, before we wrap up, and we want to do a drawer dash with you. So this is a 60 seconds of quick truth and fun. But before we wrap, is there anything new and exciting happening at Hatchline Consulting that you want to share or tell our listeners about?
Yeah, so I would say the new thing is definitely being on your podcast.
Yay!
Yeah, and so this was
grateful.
kind of fun. This is our first time to do a podcast, so we really thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.
Yeah. And then I would say the stuff that's been really kind of fun here, that's been the latest news, was me being able to step in to an accelerator program in Austin as a mentor, and it's called SKU. So that one has been fantastic. Just some great industry and founders involved in that. And it's very specific to CPG and food and beverage. But it's fantastic when you can find your community that kind of works and resonates with the startup you've got. So a lot going on there. And then, there's some stuff up my sleeve too. It's still under wraps, but I'm kind of excited about it. Yeah. So I'm kind of excited about it. But more to come. And, a lot of every opportunity is a different day. And I think like that's kind of where the new news is going to be.
Great. Well, you said something earlier that I even wrote it down because I think it speaks to Hatchline Consulting and your purpose. And you said inspire change that matters. And I think that is, it sounds to me like the epitome of what you want to do in with these companies in your future. I'm curious because I love to ask this question. Looking back now, so what do you think your younger self, people always go, what would you tell your younger self? I like to say, what do you think your younger self would say now, seeing where you are now? What do you think your younger self would say to you now?
That one I don't think I've ever thought of before, so I have to think about it.
Yeah, I had to flip the script a little bit, right? Because everybody says, what would you go back and tell your younger self? And I was like, what do you think your younger self would think of where you ended up or where what you're doing now? So, okay, well, you think about that. We can chat on it later, but
actually, no, I think I think I'm good. So I think probably what my younger self, I think for some time when you become an engineer, you become very analytical. I don't know that I was ever analytical before. So I think that part of the journey probably threw me off track a little bit because I was super analytical, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have and a grounding to have. Yeah. However, I think, after going through my career, I do have moments where I get super analytical in the moment and I lose myself in the analytics, right? Yeah. And over time you get better as you're leading and you make decisions too that you may not have all the details to. So you learn how to manage through being analytical, but also just letting it go. So I think if I'm looking at my younger self, I'm finally back But it kind of went down a different path for me. Because sometimes you think when you've got to just pick a profession when you're going to college or something like that. And I would never change anything on my path. Like, I think mine is my path and it's unique. Every journey is like that, right?
I agree
and it
with
comes
that.
and flowers a certain way. And the one thing I think at the end of the day that I definitely got right, I knew it in my gut, is following the consumer along every single step I took. I've always loved that, probably because I like connecting with people. So I like to say, oh, how did you like that fridge? Or how did you like that baby toy? Oh, you had to change those tires on that car. You know, so there's all these like fun conversations about the products that I've had. So it probably is like sometimes getting what you're wanting in life or what brings you joy might take a strange path, but eventually you get there. As long
I love it.
as you're willing to take steps off of a very strict path that you might have started. You sometimes have to give yourself room, you know?
To grow in different directions, for sure.
Yep.
Thank you. So, okay, are you ready? So here's what I'm going to do. Okay, we've talked purpose, innovation, just time to have a little fun. We call it the drawer dash. You've got 60 seconds. I don't hold you to it, but you know, just to answer whatever comes to mind first. So listen, no overthinking, just go with your gut. But honestly, if you want to talk more about it, we don't have to hold it to 60 seconds. So let's just go for it. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Coffee, tea, or something stronger?
Tea, but I love coffee.
Okay. Glad you said that. One word that describes your leadership style.
Competent.
Awesome. Perfect. The best idea or the best piece of advice, the best piece of advice you've ever been given and still use to this day.
Always go meet every connection. You know, don't shut a door, basically.
That's such good advice. Oh my gosh. What's one thing people get totally wrong about innovation?
They think that it's just trying to come up with the next thing, and it really starts with why.
That is so good because that's so true. People just, okay, I won't go down the rabbit hole. If you had to sum up Hatchline Consulting in one word, what would it be?
Let's, it's 3 words for me. I don't have one word.
It's okay. 3 words is good.
Ideas to execution to growth. That's my...
Is that your tagline? I love
yes.
that. What is it?
Ideas to execution to growth.
Okay. If early bird or night owl?
Night owl. Try my best, but night owl.
And what's a small ritual that helps you reset during the busy seasons?
Really getting back into nature or taking a step back to kind of bring in the context.
And last one, true or false, your best ideas often come when you're not working.
True.
I figured.
Airplanes for me.
When you're on an airplane or in the airport?
I have no idea why. I don't know if it's because of the pressure in the cabin, but I get all kinds of good ideas on airplanes. I have no idea why.
Squeezing your brain.
Yeah, it must be.
Getting all the good ideas out. I love that so much. All right, we talked about this before the episode. This is the Tiny Dare, right? So you know what time that is, listeners. This is our Tiny Dare. This week's Tiny Dare comes straight from Sabeen, and I'll let her tell you what it is. I definitely, once she puts it in play, give it a try. I mean, you go, Sabeen. What's your Tiny Dare for our listeners?
Yeah, so I think, and this is reflective of my journey and what I've started since last year. Yeah, I think always be sure to try something that you might be a little bit uncomfortable with. Because sometimes if you think you don't want to start a company or you don't want to go write a book, or it might just be because you haven't put yourself in a spot where you've actually gotten uncomfortable and asked yourself, what do I want to do? So every tiny step matters. So take anything. If you If you want to go start up a conversation with someone that you've never met before at a party, do that. Because maybe you're anxious about it. Or if you want to go, write a diary entry for the first time tonight, go do it. But I would say take anything that you can think of once this week that's just a little bit off routine for you or makes you a little bit uncomfortable, because in those moments, I think you can have a spark of insight.
Spark of insight. So good. So good. All right, listeners, please get back to us. Let us know how it's going. Send us pictures of your Tiny Dare in action. Maybe you journaling, whatever it was for you. Maybe you just took a 5-minute walk, whatever. Just like she said, like Sabeen said, get out, do something uncomfortable. We might even share your story on a future episode. So keep us informed. Let us know what's going on. Sabeen, thank you so much for joining me today. Your story, gosh, such a powerful reminder that innovation doesn't start with a product. It does start with purpose and asking why. And for everyone listening, here's something to think about before our next episode. What would change in your work or life if you approached innovation as a way to connect rather than just create? Sit with that one. Stay tuned. And next week, we'll explore more stories of reinvention, courage, and clarity right here on the Sock Drawer Podcast. Thank you so much, Sabeen. Pleasure having you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
All right, Sock Drawer family, that's a wrap on today's Drawer Dump. Big thanks to our guests for sharing their story and their heart with us. Until next time. Don't forget, life's too short for mismatched socks. Retire the ones with holes, inspire the ones that still shine. See you soon.